Welcome and ahoy, Blackhawks and Kraken Rink Rats. Welcome to Season 5, Episode 17 of the Rinks Chicago Blackhawks Rinkcast and Season 1, Episode 9 of the Rinks Kraken Hostile Seattle Rinkcast. We're going to combine the two today. We're going to do a trade deadline thing, and we figured we would do them all together. We could all banter back and forth about, both teams and things like that. Make it a little bit interesting, change things up a little bit. I am Jeff Osborne, a.k.a. Gatekeeper.
It's Mr. Osborne.
And I'm sitting in the big chair today in place of Andy Campbell, who is out of town today. And so I'm going to take over the reins. I'm going to, just like the old days, I'm going to be the host today. So today is St. Patrick's Day, March 17th. And here we are. The trade deadline's in like 5 days. I got my Blackhawks experts over here on the side. You see them sitting all over here. We have. I'm gonna go around the horn a little bit. I'm gonna introduce everybody. You probably the Kraken people probably don't know who all these people are, but the Blackhawks side, I'm sure, know these people very well. So I'm gonna start from the top with the good looking guy there with his not snapping his pen this week and has the ceiling fan up there. It's Sean Goldstein, aka Goldstein Fitzgerald, wearing his leprechaun hat. He is one of our Blackhawks writers. Sean, how are you, sir?
I am good. I am wearing the costume of the Wandering Shamrocks. It's our harmonica group that plays in the Elmhurst St. Patrick's Day Parade. Has for 30 plus years. So.
That guy needs to chill out.
All right. Well.
I got more for you, buddy. I got you.
Stop saying good, Sean. You sound like an ass.
Oh,
Nobody cares, Sean. Nobody cares.
So I brought the sound clips this week. So and moving down, we're gonna go a little bit on the clockwise side here. So we have down at the bottom our copy chief, Mr. Eric Andrews, Mr. Card Expert. He has the card cast. We don't want to forget. We can mention that here. Eric, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Just want to make one quick note that typically I don't wear hats, but today I am. It is St. Patrick's Day, so I am wearing a Notre Dame Fighting Irish hat. Figured Sean would enjoy that, so just wanted to make a quick note of that.
Eric, he is a bad, bad man.
That's true.
All right, cool. All right, and also last but not least, we have the Bardo, Andrew Bard. He's from the Chicago side. Again, he's on the Rinkcast from the Chicago side. Most weeks, actually, I think he's been pretty regular. I don't think there's a few that you've missed, but not many during the season. Mm-hmm. But how are you, sir?
Fantastic. Yourself?
Hanging in there, man. Hanging in there. I'm enjoying this wonderful Chicago weather. 70, almost 70 degrees. Let's see, what is it? 68 degrees today? It was almost 69. It was almost very nice. It was almost a very nice day.
It's coming our way to New York tomorrow, so.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, well, it'll be 40 and rainy here tomorrow. Yay.
All right. So we can kind of get right into things. I'm going to start off. I'm going to kind of go back and forth. We got some questions at the end. So we're going to start with the Blackhawks. The Blackhawks, you really got to decide. They really have to decide what they're going to do. I think they're going to sell. I mean, I don't think there's any question in their mind what they're going to do. We've said it, and this is kind of there's kind of some parallels with the Blackhawks and the Kraken. Basically, the Kraken are what they are. They picked up a whole bunch of third line guys, and they've got some good players, but not a ton of them. They, basically just about anyone on that roster, I think they should, sell if they get a good deal. The same goes kind of for the Blackhawks. If you get a good deal for anybody, something that blows your socks off, get them out the door. There's not really anyone. I mean, Alex DeBrincat, sure, maybe. But on a really good team, is Alex DeBrincat your guy? Maybe he's a second line player. On a really good team, maybe he is that fringe first line player. But there's no one on there. There's no one on the Chicago Blackhawks right now, in my opinion, that they really, even Kirby Dach, that for the right deal they wouldn't let go of. I'm going to start you, Bard. I'm going to go counterclockwise. Bardo, what do you think about the Blackhawks in the state, what they're going to do, or not necessarily what they're going to do, but what they should be doing and what they should be looking for at this trade deadline?
As Jim Cramer from CNBC says, sell, 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 sell. They should be looking and maximizing assets as much as possible. Things are starting to heat up with guys like Kubalik and Dahan. Hopefully, there's other guys that are also going to be on that trade block as well. But yeah, I mean, Fleury is another one. We're hearing his name. It's whether or not he's going to be willing to waive his no trade clause to a specific location. Seems like Toronto may not be a place he wants to go. Doesn't look like Washington because of this whole thing with being a rival with Pittsburgh, which I think is a little hokey. Now with the injury to Lehner, I mean, does he go to Vegas? Does he make a return there? It's possible. But yeah, I mean, I think the Blackhawks should do everything possible to sell as many players as possible and get as many assets, picks, prospects, etc.
Eric.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't have said it much better myself. I mean, for anyone that read my trade deadline preview piece about the Blackhawks.
Nice plug, by the way. Yeah. Yeah, go read Eric's trade piece on the-rink.com about this trade stuff. But go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, you guys have heard me say it a couple times before on previous episodes, but the goal here needs to be asset maximization. Like Bard said, like we've been saying for the last few weeks, that's what this deadline must be about. And there, like you were saying at the top, Jeff, there cannot be any sacred cows. Everybody can be had for the right price, period. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what your contract is. Doesn't matter. If you get a good return for a player, they're gone. That's the mindset it has to be. Now, of course, obviously, there are guys that they are going to be actively trying to move, actively hoping to move. Your guys like Dahan, Ryan Carpenter, Dominic Kubalik, guys like that. Absolutely, I would expect that those guys will be traded, prior to Monday at 3 p.m. Eastern. Who knows what the returns might be. I mean, I think the Josh Manson trade and the Ben Sherratt trade definitely bode well for a Dahan return. I think initially we kind of thought he might be like a third-round pick, maybe even a fourth. But it seems like they might be able to get more than that at this point, which, would be great. Kind of same thing with Kubalik. It seems like his market might be, a little bit better than people thought. And kind of similar to that, potentially even somebody like a Dylan Strome as well, especially since he's been hot of late. So, yeah, I mean, there's definitely some interesting names to keep an eye on. Hopefully they can come out of this pretty well and, come away with a nice little grouping of future assets that, they desperately need.
Shawnee.
Yeah, I agree with Bardo and Eric. Dylan Strome, definitely a name. Playing well as of late. The Blackhawks have been trying to move him for a third-round pick for the last year. They're targeting somewhere in a second-round pick, which if you can get a second-round pick for Dylan Strome, that's huge. I think that's something you've got to do. The markets for Dahan, obviously, Ryan Carpenter, too. And then I know Eric mentioned it in his piece. If you can get anything for Ryan or anything for Eric Gustafsson, you ship him out of town. Maybe even if Caleb Jones, if somebody wants an extra defenseman, you can move on from Caleb Jones. You've got to maximize as many assets as possible. And obviously the biggest chip in that is going to be Marc-Andre Fleury. Whether he goes to – I still don't rule out Toronto. I know he says he doesn't want to go there, but I still don't rule it out. They have the greatest need for him. Mrazek can't make the standard saves. Jack Campbell's got that lat injury. So even if he comes back, you don't know what he's going to be and if he can get in a rhythm that he was last season. So that's where I see Marc-Andre Fleury going. But yeah, they've got to – we shouldn't be holding on to Dominic Kubalik or any of these guys. Dylan Strome, maybe. That's the only guy out of that lot I can see holding on to. And like Eric said,
don't let Andy hear that.
I know, but Andy said it a couple times too. Though the more you think about it, like you need guys to play NHL minutes. You're still going to need some veteran players to go through this rebuild. You're not just going to have a bunch of AHL fourth line guys and just get your brains beat in every night. It's not going to do anything. You've got to have some serviceable veteran players to at least make people want to come to the building. So, yeah, that's what they should do right now.
Well, and also, I mean, it can't be overlooked that he's very good friends with Alex DeBrincat.
Yeah, and they play well together.
Yeah, they do play well together. If you're not even going to be in the playoffs, what does it matter if you've got a guy that can play in the playoffs? So I could see that. Go ahead.
I also forgot to mention that Eric brought it up in his article, and I forgot to mention this. Maybe it's a topic we can talk about. So Eric had mentioned that Kirby Dach might not be traded. Gate had said maybe if you find the right deal for Kirby Dach. That's all well and good, but Colton Dach, I believe, his brother, hasn't signed his entry-level contract. I'm wondering if there's another situation where I believe the Hawks traded Jimmy Hayes and then his brother refused to sign. So I'd be a little leery unless you get like the perfect deal for Kirby Dach. You're probably missing out on two players in that because you could probably lose Kirby and his brother if you trade him. So just something to think about.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to trade Kirby Dach.
No.
I don't think they're going to get an offer for him that's worth letting him go. And whatever you think of Kirby Dach as a player, he's their biggest. He's not really a prospect because he's in the NHL, but he's probably your best young player at this point in time, or at least your option as a young player. So I think they're going to hang on to him and try to ride that out, try to quote unquote fix him. But they're going to have to figure out whether they want him at wing or if they want him at center, because he hasn't been doing so hot at center. He was like he was ended up being like a younger version of Dylan Strome, what it looked like at the beginning of this year. But
John Dietz said he was going to be a winger before anybody else, so let's give John credit. Let's make sure we give John Dietz that credit.
Wait, correction. John Dietz told Derek King to move him to wing, and then he did it. Whatever later.
Boom, nailed it.
Yeah.
Well, it also kind of goes to the point of what is Dach, because we've seen him showcase some skill. We've seen him play two different positions, center and wing. We've seen him lately get pretty physical and mix it up a little bit. So where does he fit? What is he? I don't know. And I still don't know what he is. I've seen a little bit of everything. And is he a guy that's going to be, pretty good at a lot of things, but not great at one thing? Or what is he? So I just don't think the book has been written on him.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's not Hickory Dickory.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, okay, we're going to shift. We're going to shift over to the West Coast now, the Kraken. Now, I know you guys aren't fully up on the Kraken, and I'm the guy who's been the Kraken expert. But recently, they opened up their trade deadline acquisitions, or actually the other way around. They're selling their life rafts of people, just sending them out of town. Kelly Yarncroc was traded yesterday, who's a good middle six player, kind of reminds me in the mold of a Matthias Janmark kind of player. They got him in the expansion draft from Nashville, and then now they flipped him around. He's got about 30 points, I believe. Something close to that, 28, 30 points. He's had a good year for a team that's not done very well. And they trade him to Calgary, who could probably use some depth players in their lineup. They've got the top end stuff, but to get another depth player that could play both ways, that could play tough playoff hockey. And this guy's got a bunch of games of NHL playoff hockey under his belt. So, that's definitely like Janmark last year when he went to Vegas, and Yarncroc this year goes to Calgary. The Kraken got back three different draft picks from three different drafts, and they retain half of Janmark's salary. So they get a second round this year, they get a third round next year, and a seventh round in 2024. It's 3 draft picks. It's 3 assets. The Kraken don't have a robust system. They're going to have to build, an ECHL team, and now they have their AHL team is going to be coming in next year. They're going to need a full AHL team and an ECHL team probably, plus what you're going to have, in college and the juniors and stuff like that. So what they need right now is players. They need players that can play, that they can get in their system, develop them, see what you have. And that's exactly what they're doing here. You guys anyone got anything, on Kelly Yarncroc going to Calgary and the Hall that came back? No?
I mean,
I can say that, I like the acquisition for Calgary from that perspective. I also like it for Seattle because, quite frankly, that's exactly what they need is assets. And think, getting a type of player like him, who to me is a playoff type player. I mean, he fits kind of the Daryl Sutter mode of, a guy who's going to play in multiple situations. And, to me, I think Calgary is not done. They're going for it. We'll see what else they do. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a good trade for both teams. I really do.
The way I feel about the Kraken is the same way I feel about Chicago. It's like they got to get get all these guys out the door. They're middle six players. You can get middle six players. If you want to hang on to a couple of them, sure, that's fine. I'm not saying you have to get rid of everybody, but if you get a good offer for somebody, out the door. Like let them. You don't have that much of an attachment. You have 60 games of attachment to these guys. So outside of Matty Beniers, who was their first round draft pick this past draft, and even him, if you got the right deal for him, sure, whatever. There's just everybody get your draft picks. I want to see the Kraken have 50 draft picks in this draft. Because you're a good portion of them will probably work out. So, and that's what you need. You need this robust system. Eric, you have something to say too about this?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and feel free to chime in on this, Gate, but I think if you said even a week or two ago that you could get, a second or a third for Cal Yarncroc, you'd probably be pretty satisfied with that. So the fact you got a second, a third, and another late pick, no brainer. Like, that's a great return for them. Like you said, it's really important that they start building up these future assets in order to round out their organization. And, like you were saying too, they're really starting from square one still. It's been a year, but they're still working on that building component of it. And, the more lottery tickets you have, the better. Eventually something's going to work out, like you were saying. And, like I said, getting that type of return for, a guy that probably you weren't really going to keep around for all that long, kind of just another one of the guys out of that big group that you got, great. And I think, looking at who they chose in the expansion draft, it kind of seems like that's kind of the direction that Ron Francis wanted to go. He picked a lot of guys that were on expiring contracts this year. So I think his target and his goal with the expansion draft was, maybe we'll be competitive this year, maybe we won't, but that's fine because we're going to flip a lot of these guys and get, decent assets in return for that. So, I like that direction. I think that's, a great way to build up a franchise. I mean, they don't have necessarily a kind of like a big time trade chip that they're going to move. I mean, they have Giordano. He'll probably get a decent return, but it's not like they have a guy that, is like, oh, surefire first round pick, quality prospect, all of that. Yeah. So, you might not have the super high end quality that they'll be getting back, but they certainly should get a lot of quantity. And, there's nothing wrong with having 2, 3, 4 second round picks, third round picks. That's how you end up building a quality system. So I like the direction that they're heading, and I'm sure that there will be quite a few more deals like that they'll be making throughout the weekend.
Yeah, unfortunately, the way their team is, like, there's fan favorites and things like that. Like, I like Brandon Tanev a lot, but if someone was to come up and say, hey, I'll give you, a second and third for Brandon Tanev, like, see ya, man. There's really no one, no one that has to stay. So.
Well, I mean, Jared McCann has to say because they just paid him, but
they could trade him too. But I mean, I'm just saying, yeah,
they could, but also, like, piggybacking on what those guys said, Ron Francis knows how to build an organization. I mean, he was with Carolina. Allegedly, right? Yeah. He was with Carolina for this number of years. He's seen what they've done Carolina's drafted well. They've made some savvy trades. So, yeah, I think Yarncrook is the first guy to go. Marcus Johansson is probably going to go. He's on an expiring deal. He can play all three wing positions. Like, they're going to just keep shipping out guys. And like you said, Gate, they've got to build the ECHL team and the AHL team. So even if these like third round or seventh round picks don't make the NHL, they can still fill out the rest of your organization.
Yeah,
which is
definitely.
a good problem to have.
Yeah. They they got, let's see, Johansson, Appleton, Cole Lind, Riley Sheehan, Ryan Donato, Morgan Geeky, Colin Blackwell. Those guys are all on expiring contracts this year. So, those guys could be rentals. Plus, you have Hayden Fleury and Jeremy Lausanne, but they're, both RFAs. And Giordano's a UFA. And
Yeah, they don't. They
go
don't
ahead.
seem to like Hayden Fleury for whatever reason.
Yeah, he's been getting the shaft a lot.
Yeah,
Which I don't necessarily understand. They seem to love Jeremy Lausanne, and I hate that guy. I don't like him at all. Everything I've seen from him, he's digging the puck out of his own net, and he's just taking stupid penalties, and I'm not a fan of him. But they seem to like him better. I don't know why. Will Borgen, even he's another player that he took a while to get into the lineup, and when he did get into the lineup, he played pretty well. So the problem is it is not their defense as much as it's their offense is just not putting the puck in the net enough, and the puck ends up back in their own end too much. They have pretty good underlying numbers as far as possession goes. They're not horrible. They're decent for a team with the record that they have, but they just can't score. They can't score, and they haven't gotten any saves. So when the puck ends up in their end, they got sub 900 goaltending, which they should be getting better goaltending out of those two guys that they have. So that's why I think I saw someone mention sending Drieger and Giordano to Maple Leafs for Mrazek and I don't know, Dylan McDermott or something or is it Dylan McDermott or
Travis.
Tom McDermott or whatever. Doing a trade like that and sending Drieger out. I mean, I like Drieger, and I don't hate Grubauer. I'm not as big as some people are on him, but and they have Joey Decord too, who aren't all bad goalies, but they got to shift things up. So shifting back, we're going to go back to the Blackhawks now. We've talked enough Seattle for now. Everyone's dozing off. So let's start with, first of all, we could talk about Alex Vlasic. Alex Vlasic signed his entry-level deal with the Blackhawks. He was a second-round draft pick a couple of years back. Big defenseman out of Boston. Is BU or Boston?
he was Boston University.
Yeah. Big defenseman, probably going to be more of a defensive defenseman, but he's got size, and hopefully he can move his feet. We'll see what happens. Sean, start with you.
Yeah, I like the move. I'm glad that they brought him in. We kind of had a debate, Eric and myself, about if he plays right now. He does burn a year off his entry-level contract. So that is, for me, it's kind of an issue just because you want him under a lower cost for 3 years as opposed to 2. But you got to see what you have in him, and this, especially if they move Calvin DeHaan. Connor Murphy's hurt right now. This is really the best opportunity to get him in the lineup. Maybe, especially if Eric Gustafsson just hopefully disappears. You could play him. You could play. Why am I blanking on his? I'm blanking on his name.
Alec Regula.
Yeah, Alec Regula. There you go. And the 5th round pick, who's been up a bunch of times. Galvis. Galvis.
Jakob Galvis.
Yeah. So you hopefully are forming some young defensive core where maybe you can build around. So I like the move, and it's good to sign your draft picks.
Yeah, for sure. Bardo.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything Sean said. I mean, I would give him a shot, especially if there are some bodies that are moved on Monday. And let's see what the kid has. I mean, if he gets a 20-game trial, or if he really doesn't look the part, then send him down and develop him further. So if they think that he can handle it or want to give him a shot at trying to handle it, let's do it. And, at this point, it's really all about, finding young players, identifying who your future is going to be. So I don't have a problem with it. So if they think that he's ready for it.
Eric.
Yeah. So one thing that we had been talking about after the news came out, we were, like Sean was saying, the burn a year of the contract. I don't know if we've gotten true confirmation on this, but I think we've gathered that if you sign at 20 years old or older out of the NCAA, that there isn't the option to slide that contract. It just starts when you sign it. So, and we've seen that with other college players too, signing at the end of a season. Like I remember back in the day, Blake Hillman, it was the same thing. His first year was used up at the end of that season.
I think Dennis Gilbert too, maybe.
Yeah, guys like that, they're upperclassmen in college when they sign, that there isn't the option to slide that year. So that's just kind of how it works for those guys. Now, the way you can get around that is if you sign them to the 3-year deal starting the next year, and then they join the AHL team on a PTO.
And
If you can
I think
do that.
Is it a PTO or it's a PTO or an ATO? It might be an
Yeah,
I think it's a
ATO.
PTO.
Whichever. Essentially, they're not actually under contract for the rest of that season, but you have to do that in the AHL. You can't be on an ATO playing NHL regular season games.
right.
Yeah.
So the only way for them to get Alex Vlasic into the lineup this season was to sign him to his 3-year ELC and, have that start immediately. So, I don't have a problem with that because, you look at a lot of the other young defensemen in the system, Wyatt Kalynuk, Ian Mitchell, guys like that, they're still not really, fully physically developed and fully, ready to handle the physical nature of the NHL. Whereas you look at Alex Vlasic, the dude is 6'6", 215. He can handle the physicality of the NHL right now. It's more so just seeing if he can handle the pace of play and, thinking the game a little bit faster than obviously it is at the college level. So, I don't mind it in that regard because, he's not just going to get his brains beat in every single night. And I don't think the plan is to be playing him every night either. It sounds like they're not even sure if he'll play this weekend or not. So I don't mind, just easing him in. Maybe he plays every second game, every third game, plays very sheltered minutes, presumably, kind of just learns on the job. They see what he can do. That's fine. I don't see anything wrong with doing that. And, kind of if they did go the PTO, ATO route in the AHL, I'm not sure, maybe that would be an easier transition for him. But there's such a logjam down there, too, that it's like how much of an opportunity would he really get? And then he would be taking ice time away from other guys, too. So I don't know. I mean, it's well documented they have far too many average defensive prospects. So, if you're going to sign him and have him playing somewhere the rest of the season, I think this was the way to do it. And, yeah, it'll be interesting to see, what he can do and whatever opportunity he does get.
Yeah, and there's nothing to say that, he doesn't come in, he plays 3 games, and then they send him down to the AHL, and he just finishes the season in the AHL. There's nothing that says he's going to finish the season with the Blackhawks, and I'll be honest, I don't think he should. You get him in there, see what he looks like for a couple of games, just give him his little taste, burn his, you're probably doing him a favor. They probably asked that, he be signed this year so that they could burn a year off, so he's 1 year closer to, getting a little bit of a bigger payday. That's just the thing they do nowadays. Just like with the long-term injury, they just work the cap, and this is how they work the cap so that, and work the CBA so that, players can get paid a little earlier. So I think that's what's going to end up happening with that. Sure, you're probably going to see some cool things out of them, but we've seen this many, many times before. Blackhawks players come in their first game and they look like, they're world beaters. Drew LeBlanc, like
Michael
just
Paleota.
Paleota, yeah. Like all these guys, like they come in and they look good for a game or two because that adrenaline of them playing their first game. But then he's going to settle back down to earth, and then you'll really see what you have with him and how much development he needs. And I have hope for him. When they drafted him, I hope that someday he turns into like a lighter version of what Brent Seabrook was in his heyday. A big guy that can move, that could hit people, and could still pitch in a little bit of offense here and there too. I don't think that's going to happen, but it would be nice if it did happen. Because they're going to need something like that, and we don't know if they have anything like that right now. He may be the closest thing to it. So, anyone else got anything about Vlasic, or you want me to move on?
Nicholas Bodan is also one of those undersized defensemen that's still wallowing away in
Ian
Rockford.
Mitchell, all the guys. Yeah, I mean Ian, quote unquote Ian.
He's no Seth Orr though.
He's no Seth Orr. All right, I'm going to move to the next subject of the Blackhawks because I didn't want to hang too long on that, but we really want to get into the meat of the trade deadline stuff. So we know Marc-Andre Fleury. We'll kind of talk about that a little bit. We'll kind of wrap up maybe on that one. But the biggest thing we've seen the last couple days, and it's kind of really blown up lately, is Dominik Kubalik, who's one of my favorite players on the Blackhawks. Like I have a Dominik Kubalik jersey. I don't want to see him go, but if you get the right deal for him, see ya later. It looks like Anaheim, Edmonton, LA, and Winnipeg are all possible destinations for Dominik Kubalik, which is interesting. But what do we think here? We will go to Sean.
My thought process on that is I'm curious to know Anaheim. It seems like it's a move for the future because Anaheim is still kind of hanging around. The Kings are in a position where they should be able to make the playoffs, and they're going to need a veteran scorer. I would like, if he did go back to the Kings, I would like to get something hopefully from their system, whether it's a draft pick or maybe even a prospect, because they seem to be doing well drafting.
They have a really good system. Yeah, that's a good point.
That would be the destination I'd like them to go. Hopefully they can find. I mean, the market seems to be kind of crazy for fringe middle tier guys right now. So hopefully, Kyle Davidson can maximize that and turn this into a couple of assets.
How wild would it be? The Blackhawks got Dominik Kubalik for what, a 7th round draft pick from LA?
Yep.
How wild would it be if they got like a decent prospect back from LA after they used, Kubalik for free for a couple of years? How wild would it be if you got another asset back?
That'd be crazy. Well, was that Dean Lombardi who traded him?
Probably, I don't know.
And now it's why can't I think of his name?
Rob Blake.
Yeah, Rob Blake, who's running the show, and Rob Blake's done a really good job there. So,
Eric.
Yeah, I mean, going back to what you were just saying, about taking, I think it was a 5th round pick that they gave up for him, but taking that, essentially using him for free, getting something better in return. What is that called, everybody? Asset maximization.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, like we said, it seems like the market for that kind of a player right now is pretty solid. I mean, would you, obviously it depends on the team situation, but would you rather have, Dominik Kubalik or Calle Jarnkrok? Again, depends on the team, but, those guys are probably fairly similar value-wise. If a team is looking for depth scoring, you can do a lot worse than Dominik Kubalik on your third line. He's probably one of those guys that performs a little bit better the more ice time he has. But, still, if you can get, a couple clutch goals out of him in a playoff run, that's hugely valuable. So, and can even kind of help you diversify your lineup a little bit. If you have a legit goal-scoring threat on 3 lines, that's going to help you. So, yeah, I think that they could probably expect a somewhat decent return, especially in light of the Jarnkrok deal. Like you guys were saying, if you can get a 2nd-round pick or something for him, great. No problem. If they end up keeping him, it kind of similar type of thing as the Dylan Strome situation. You have to have guys playing NHL minutes. You have to have guys still scoring goals during a rebuild. That's a fact.
4.4 is his qualifying offer.
it's a little bit high. I mean, especially given that he's been on a downward trend since his rookie year. Obviously, that would have been the time to cash out on him. But, at that point, they were probably thinking this is what he's going to be. He's going to be a 30, 35 goal scorer for, the foreseeable future. And obviously now we see that's not the case. But, yeah, I mean, he's one of those guys where if they decide to keep him around through the rebuild, okay, fine. But if you can get a decent return for him, yeah, absolutely let him go and hope that you can turn around those assets into something, of some good quality. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, another thing that I kind of think about too in the grand picture of the trade deadline, especially for teams like the Blackhawks and the Kraken, if you're getting draft picks in return for these types of guys, you should probably be able to at least replace them with that pick that you're getting. Like we'll talk about Brandon Hagel later, I'm sure, but like if you're getting a late first round draft pick for a guy like Brandon Hagel, you have a big problem if you cannot replace him with a first round pick. So if you're getting a first round pick and more, no brainer, do it.
Yeah, and there's like 3 tiers here in the Blackhawks of players they basically got for free. That now what you do with that when you get a player for free that no one else wanted is you flip it around and you get an asset for it, and then you come out on top no matter what happened. Dominic Kubalik's one, Marc-Andre Fleury, and Brandon Hagel. They're all players that you got for free. You got them for free. Like the most you paid was a 5th round draft pick pretty much for any of them. And you have to turn them around and turn that into value. That's what you do. That's what an NHL general manager, his job is to do that. So that's what they should be doing right now. I like Brandon Hagel as much as everybody does, but you got him for free. He's probably not going to have that value much longer. He's young. He's cost controlled. Some team will probably overpay for him, and he will probably in 2 or 3 years end up being that guy that you're like, well, what happened to him 3 years ago? Bardo, jump in.
So I'm less bullish on what the Blackhawks can get in return for Kubalik. I just think he's a one-trick pony. And look, what he does is he scores goals, and he's good at it. He hasn't really shown it much this year, but to me, I agree with Eric. I think putting him on a third line would probably make the most sense, on a cup contender. But I think for me, it's a little bit hard to compare the return of what Seattle got for Yankrok versus what the Hawks could, and what that means for the Hawks in terms of what the return would be for Kubalik, because they're 2 totally different players. I just see Yankrok as being more of a playoff type performer. I mean, he can kill penalties. He could play a shutdown role. You could put him in an offensive role in a pinch in a certain situation where he could maybe play a little puck possession. For Kubalik, I think he's got a nice shot, and I think he can, score goals. But apart from that, I just don't see what else he can do. And he's the type of guy where I can see him pissing off a coach, and then all of a sudden he doesn't see the ice for a couple of games or whatever. So to me, I think I'm hopeful for a third round. Look, if they get a second, I take it and run. I'm thinking more third, fourth-ish, but that's just my opinion on him.
Yeah, and he's like he's what he is he's a second power play guy, a trigger man on a second power play, and he's probably like a fringe second, third line winger. On a team where you really need him, he could play that second line and be a trigger man on that line. He's not going to completely drive the play. He's not going to run your offense, but he could be a trigger man, and he's got a good heavy shot. You can work him around the power play, and that can also be valuable in the playoffs to a team that had, that let's just say, for example, like the Edmonton, who has a really good first power play, but their second power play, you roll it out there, and they're just a liability. Well, maybe they want to bolster that second power play, that kind of thing. If they were to even make the playoffs, which they're probably not. But, that's just where he is. Maybe he's kind of cost controlled. He's an RFA. They're going to, he like Sean said, with the qualifying offer, he's still relatively cheap. based on what he can produce for you, if he can continue to produce. This year he started off red hot, and now he's really cooled off. So he hasn't really been consistent, and that would kind of scare me as a Kraken, coverage guy. That would scare me off. But if the Kraken were to take a flyer on him because he's going to be fairly cheap and he can put the puck in there, that's something they need. So, yeah. Anyone else got anything on that? On the Kubalik? Nope. All right, cool. All right,
Nope.
I'm going to flip back over to the Kraken. This is going to probably be, until the questions, this is going to be my last Kraken topic because I don't want to monopolize it with my Kraken talk, my ass Kraken talk.
Phil McCracken.
Phil McCracken. Mark Giordano. He's their captain. He was taken, off from Calgary in the expansion draft. He's had an okay year, but he's been their captain. He's been their leader and everything like that. But even when they first picked him, I saw people talking about, that he's probably going to be a deadline flip anyway, and he could end up going somewhere. I've heard, possibly, like I mentioned earlier, with the Leafs or, someone who needs to bolster the defense. Maybe it could have been, Arizona before they got Josh Manson. If they needed that extra guy on the back end, they could bolster, the back, the third pair or whatever, the 3 through 6 slot, with that playoff experience that he has. And, he just won a Norris Trophy a couple years ago. He could help.
He runs the power play, doesn't he, too? Doesn't he captain?
Yeah, I don't know whether he should be or not. But,
Okay.
If you get something for him, if you can get, for Mark Giordano, you get a second round pick. I'm see ya, man. Second round pick this year, bolster it up. Get as many. If you just acquired a second round pick, now you'd have another second round pick. You're gonna have your own second round pick. You'd have 3 second round picks. Even if you wanted to package some of those together to get somebody else, like that's what you're gonna. That's what you have to do. So let's see. Let's start. Who ended last time? Bardo. Yeah. Bardo, what do you think about Giordano? Where do you think he could go? What do you think he could get for him?
So Toronto, you mentioned, I think I think a second round pick and probably another pick is certainly worth it because defensemen, especially guys who could play the top 4 are, important this time of year. I think a team like the Rangers is another possibility because, they're a team that has given up a ton of shots and especially high danger shots. And that's, not a good formula going into the playoffs. So, and he'd be a good mentor for a lot of their young defensemen. So I think the Rangers are certainly a candidate to get him as well. I heard Calgary can certainly reacquire him, which would be interesting as well. So, I think those are the 3 teams that I'm thinking of off the top of my head.
Yeah, and Calgary would be an interesting thing because then, I don't know if this stuff really factors in, but it's always a good storyline or something like that. Like win one for Gio, win one for Gio. We brought him back, and we're going to take him to the promised land. It's going to be, he's going to do his victory lap kind of thing. There's always those stories like that kind of propel teams in the playoffs. So, that would be kind of cool to see as well. Shawnee, what do you think about Giordano?
Yeah, I think Calgary makes the most sense. Like you just said, the homecoming would make a lot of sense there. Like I said, he's on their power play. Maybe he's not there. I don't know if he's a fit in Toronto just because I think they have – I know Kyle Dubas said 2 weeks ago that their move was going to be add a defenseman. But like we talked about earlier, I think they have a bigger need at goaltender. So I think that should be the priority for them.
That's going to be a mess. I don't think they're going to be able to figure that one out.
I think a name that's not being really floated out there, Semyon Varlamov from the Islanders. I think the Islanders are out of it. Why not move? If they can't get any goaltender, you got to go get somebody. Varlamov might be the guy they go get from the Islanders.
Yeah, the hilarious thing is this Anton Forsberg the thing where all of a sudden in his 6th year in the league, he's all of a sudden become a good goalie because he's having one good year. Like that could all change. You take him out of that system that he's playing in.
Yeah,
he is one of those guys like Devin Dubnyk. I never believed in Devin Dubnyk ever.
Nope.
Like he got in a system where he played very well. He had put up good numbers, He even got Vezina votes because of it. But
That was
anywhere else he went, he was terrible.
he was released 3 times in one season.
Yeah.
Yeah, 3 times. He played with Nashville. Wasn't Nashville, Minnesota, and somebody Buffalo, I think, all in the same year.
Montreal. He played with Montreal, Arizona. He played with a bunch of teams.
Well, look at Cam Talbot after he left the
Rangers
the system the system that Tortorella had. He left there, and then all of a sudden he just sucked. So
yeah,
look at the 2 Kraken goalies, Drieger and Grubauer.
Great point. Yeah, exactly. Great point. Grubauer played so well with the Avs. He played okay with the Caps, and then you had Drieger, who started out with Ottawa and then went down to Florida and played really well in Florida. But now he comes. Neither one of those guys. Those guys are I think they're sub 890 goalies.
Yeah,
they're
are.
That bad.
I was looking at it. It's 0.88 and 0.85.
What's that, Bardo?
But I was going to say, this is also the problem that I have when you're, whether you're rebuilding or you're a cup contender, what it is. It's like, you don't need to spend $1.01 billion on goaltending and build from the goaltender out. You need to build on defense and build at center because, if you have a goaltender that could make the big save when you need it, your defense should be keeping the puck away from the goaltender and your offense should be able to possess the puck so that it stays out of your own zone. So, I mean, if you look at the Hawks won 3 Stanley Cups with 2 different goaltenders, and it's not to take away from Corey Crawford, but look at who they were the first time with. It was
Antti Niemi.
Yeah.
Because they could not get a save from Cristobal Huet.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, he was
so
terrible.
they had to put Niemi in there. Oh, I hate Huet. I don't want this to be Huet.
He was a talented goaltender, but he wasn't standing on his head,
Yeah, I don't want this to be a Huet hate cast, but I hated it.
I hated the signing. I thought the signing was terrible. And
he was
said that year that Niemi was going to be the starter. Because I thought he's a talented kid, but I wasn't ready to call him, the second coming of, Vasilevsky or whoever.
They even wrote the Bulin Wall over.
Yeah.
Well, that was the thing
over Huet the year before.
Right. Well, that was the thing. Yeah, they had Crawford in the system who was ready to come up. They had Hobby Bulin for another year. They could have hung on to him and not signed Huet, and then the next year figured out what to do if they wanted, if they didn't like Crawford or whatever they didn't want to do. But they ran out there because Huet had that improbable run with
the
he
Capitals.
was traded from Montreal to the Caps, and it was all it was all a scam. And that's the way I felt back then, and definitely it's shown to be that way. That it was all a big scam. He moved out of system, and he didn't play well with the Blackhawks because they played a different sort of system that didn't lend to his strengths.
But but the point is, these elite goaltenders, you can't sign them to these huge money contracts because, it's not the way to build your team. You sink it all into goaltending. It's just look at Carey Price and look at DP
Jonathan Quick
and
Luongo.
Nothing.
Quick, the Florida's goaltender, Bobrovsky, yeah.
All right, Eric's jumping in. Eric, what do you got to say about this? I didn't get you today.
No problem. So back to Mark Giordano.
Sorry, tangent.
I like the storyline of going back to Calgary there. One thing that I think is something that can be overlooked, and I mean, it's something we haven't talked about yet. One thing that you always, there's always a question in your mind when you're making a trade deadline acquisition. Is this guy going to fit in with the team, going to fit in with the system, going to fit in with the coach? If you're the Calgary Flames and you're making a move for Mark Giordano, you do not have to worry about that at all. He knows the system. He's familiar with the coaching staff. He's familiar with the teammates, with the systems, all that. You don't have to worry about that. You just plug him in, play him on a second pair, whatever, and he'll be fine. So, I like the Calgary option in that regard. I also do like the Rangers angle that you were talking about, Bardo. I think just at this point in his career, what he can offer to a team, I think that would be a good fit for a team like the Rangers that kind of need that, kind of steady presence on the back end. He can go in and, be your second power play guy behind a guy like Adam Fox, and just help settle things down, and again, like, someone said, kind of give you almost like a little bit of a rallying cry. Hey, we're going out getting this veteran that hasn't won a cup. Let's get one for him. We're a good team. we get this guy, that gives us even just a little bit more motivation. So, I think those are both, good fits for different reasons. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see, and I'm curious to see what the return ends up being for him too. I don't think there's any doubt whatsoever that he will be traded. I think it's just a matter of when and what they're getting in return. But yeah, I mean, I think like you were saying, Jeff, like you kind of knew there was a pretty good chance that he was going to be a deadline flip when they picked him. So, that time has come. Kraken fans have been able to enjoy him for 60 games, kind of have an established veteran guy that everyone can say, yeah, I know all about that guy. He's been good for the organization, but, it's time to move on and get what you can.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Well, I mean, that's most of my Kraken. Sergeant Pickle said, "Don't let these guys bully me out of my Kraken content." But we got to share the stage back and forth. We got to move around here. So let's head back to the Blackhawks and let's get really to the meat of why we're all here. I mean, the Blackhawks are going to be unloading players, and there's going to be some moves between now. And I've been furiously watching Twitter just to make sure that nothing happened while this show, because I was sure something was going to happen today from both the Kraken and the Blackhawks. But there's some big names that could get thrown out there. They could end up leaving. We mentioned Brandon Hagel, Marc-Andre Fleury's that big one. We're hearing lately that he could go to Minnesota. He could play in Minnesota, which was I didn't even realize that was going to be a possibility until now. Toronto could use him. They could use him back in Vegas, because now it looks like Robin Lehner, his injury could be more worse than it was originally thought, and they may need him because even if Robin Lehner comes back, he may not recover fully this season, so he may be good enough to play, but he might not be good enough to carry him through the playoffs. And, Marc-Andre Fleury is a nice, this is the same thing that happened, 3 years ago when they brought in Robin Lehner to be the security blanket for Marc-Andre Fleury. It was the same thing, and I think it's silly when you hear like the Capitals, he won't go to the Capitals. He won't go to Pittsburgh. He won't go to, it's not going to go to Vegas. He's not going to go to Toronto. Like, really? These are all teams that can be successful this year and can possibly win the cup. You don't want to go to a team that can win the cup. If you're going to go somewhere, and then this whole thing with, are they going to do right by Marc-Andre Fleury? This guy's been in the organization for like 6 months, and he's a nice guy and everything. But do you want to set the organization back like another year by not being able to get some kind of quality asset that you can now bring through your system and can be that next level of player? Because Marc-Andre Fleury, has a bug up his butt that he doesn't want to leave Chicago. I mean, I don't like, if you're an NHL GM, you be an NHL GM and do the job, man. You can't play favorites at this point in time. You can't. Like, Kyle Davidson needs to come in swinging for the fences on a lot of this stuff. I'd rather him swing and miss than not even step up to the plate. That's my look on this thing. Shawnee, you start with Marc-Andre Fleury and who you may see leaving. What do you think?
So, yeah, I think I agree with you. Kyle Davidson's got to step up the plate, and he's got to trade Marc-Andre Fleury. And the more I think about it, the more I think all the being loyal to Marc-Andre Fleury is just talk. Because you look at the moves Davidson's made since he's been general manager. Like, he fired Jeremy Colliton, got him out of town. Like, as soon as they said, yeah, you have full autonomy, he canned that guy. So I think, despite what they're saying, I think he's a little more cutthroat that they're leading on to. If he goes to Vegas, I would like him to go to Vegas just because, Vegas is in win now mode. Like we were talking about in the chat earlier, Vegas is in win now mode. They don't care about their prospects. Like, they want to win the Stanley Cup. The ownership group wants to win the Stanley Cup. They're not going to care if Robin Lehner's hurt, Mark Stone's hurt. They've got so many injuries. They don't care. Vegas wants to win it all. And if
they are begging, borrowing, and stealing to do everything they can to fill up that roster to win now.
Yeah, I mean, they basically put Mark Stone on LTIR to fit Jack Eichel into their active roster to get him playing time before the playoffs because he hasn't played in over a year because he had a back surgery. So they're doing everything they possibly can to win the Stanley Cup. So bring in Marc-Andre Fleury back to Vegas is another emotional story. Remember, the first marquee pick of the Vegas Golden Knights in the expansion draft was Marc-Andre Fleury. And they've been to the finals with him one time and they didn't win. So just like we were saying with the Giordano story, the emotional lift Marc-Andre Fleury might bring being back in Vegas. His family, I don't know if he moved his family to Chicago or not, but they felt like they were at home in Vegas. I think it's comfortable there. I think that's where he should go. If I'm Toronto, I go to the Blackhawks. Go, no. We only have a first and second round pick next year. We'll give you our first round pick. We'll give you our second round pick in 22, our first round pick in 23, and something else because they have to get a goalie. They have to. Otherwise, Dubas might be working for an accounting firm or something after this season because he's good with the numbers. Because he ain't going to be
him and John
GM.
Shako will be hooking up together. Sean, or how about Eric?
Yeah. So and again. Like I
Give us
said
your hot
here-
take. Give us your hot take. I know you've been talking about it. Your hot take about
All right, well,
Marc-Andre Fleury.
I'm gonna make you wait.
Just like all the women in my life, making me wait.
Similar to Giordano, it's the same situation if Fleury were to go back to Vegas. He will fit into the system, into the team, everything. You don't have to worry about that. So, that's obviously a big plus, as well as for all the reasons that you guys already said. So, yeah, if he's traded, that I would love to see that. It makes sense for everybody involved. Like Sean just said, too, Toronto, I think, has to make a move for a goalie. I just don't think that they can go into the playoffs with what they have. It's just not. It's not even just about on ice, but if you have that team that they have that's built to win, and you clearly have a problem and don't address it, that's just a huge problem. So, yeah, I think they have to make a move for goalie, whether it's Fleury, whether it's Varlamov, whether it's trying to get, Eunice Korpisalo or, whoever it might be. They have to make a move for a goalie, period. And I think that they recognize that and will be aggressive with trying to get at least something. If you're going into the playoffs with Campbell and Mrazek or, this new guy, Sheldron, it's not a good situation at all.
No, you can't. That guy just made his first NHL start the other day. You can't go into the playoffs with that guy.
No. Yeah. So, yeah, I think those are probably the two destinations that do make the most sense, just with team need and also what Fleury can kind of provide. Another thing too, let's say Toronto goes and gets, a Varlamov or a Korpisalo or something. You can't overlook the fact that Toronto and that market is nuts. I don't know if those guys can handle that. There are very few players that can handle that. It's kind of like Carey Price in Montreal. It's a huge spotlight. It's a lot of pressure just being in that position. Marc-Andre Fleury is the kind of guy that can handle that. It's just a matter of if he wants to. So, anyway, back to what Jeff was wanting me to get at earlier. My thing here, and I said this in my piece, right or wrong, the situation is they say they're honoring whatever he wants. Again, you can argue right or wrong. It doesn't matter. That's what they say they're doing. So if that's what they're doing, that's what they're doing. Now, yes, obviously for the future of the franchise and everything, absolutely move him. Get him out of here as soon as possible. Get whatever the best return is you can get for him and build for your future. Absolutely. But there's a good chance that just will not happen. And again, right or wrong, and that's just going to be the reality of it. So, I was listening to a podcast today. I think it was Blackhawks Talk with Emily Kaplan on there. She was saying that I believe if she had to put a percentage on it right now, that it would be like 60% that he does not get moved.
Oh.
So we'll see what happens. I mean, there's still 4 days. I think at least based on kind of what we're hearing and reading, over the last week or so, it does seem to be trending in the direction that he will be moved. So, yeah, personally, I would love to see, if he's moved, what that return is. I think it's great, not for those teams, but great for the Hawks, certainly, that now you do have two teams that have very quickly become very desperate for a quality goaltender. So, and are both very much in win now mode. And Marc-Andre Fleury is the epitome of a win now goalie. So, I think if he's willing to move and you could get a bidding war going between Vegas and Toronto, that's like best case scenario. So, we've talked about earlier this year, Jeff, I know you were very much like, there's no chance that Marc-Andre Fleury gets you a first round pick. I don't know about that anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know. I
The
think
market's drunk right now. I think he gets a first rounder.
I think.
Well, I mean, look at the way he started the season, though. The way he started the season, he did not look like a player that you're going to be able to flip for a first round pick. Then
Look
he
at
found
what
he found it,
he
but
had
he
the-
kind of lost it again too.
He has a boy wonder as his coach. Come on. And it was like the Jason Todd version of Robin coaching the team. That's how bad he was.
Right.
They killed him off. So,
But yeah, I mean, you look at the market right now. You look at that. You said throughout the season he has reestablished himself as being a very high end goaltender. His numbers aren't great, but that's because he's getting shelled every single night. You put him behind, a good defense like Vegas, he'll be fine. So, I'll be very intrigued to see if he does want to move and they, move him, what that return could be, because, with how crazy the market is and how desperate a couple of these teams could be, it could be a much bigger return than we think. It could be a first and more, a quality prospect. It sounds like their asking price is a first and a decent prospect. So let's say he wants to go to Toronto. Toronto gives you a first and, Abruzzese or Nick Robertson or Rodion Amarov, whoever it might be. That's a home run for the Blackhawks.
Yeah, for sure. Bardo.
So I think, I know I said earlier that I don't think he wants to go to Toronto. Maybe that changes. I don't know. But to me, Toronto's going to be the most desperate because we're all old enough to remember when their arch rival, the Montreal Canadiens, went to the Stanley Cup final and made a run, albeit it was in a shortened season, COVID year and all that. But they still got to a Stanley Cup final, and it's in the history books that that's where they were. They're the defending Eastern Conference champions right now. But they were a very flawed roster. They got hot at the right time. They stink right now. And so Toronto, I'm sure, is looking at them saying, like, what the hell do we have to do to go get there and make a move in the playoffs? Because we haven't done that. And Fleury is their answer right now because, look, the defense to me is still an issue. It's been an issue for me in Toronto for years. But if you could get somebody who is capable of carrying you in net, you do it. And maybe you could throw in a Calvin DeHaan to help their back end a little bit as well. So, I mean, the thing that concerns me about Vegas, and I totally agree with Sean's points about how they're totally going for it. I just think that their system is so bare. There's just nothing there. I mean, there's nothing in there that really impresses me. I mean, Krebs just got traded. To me, he was their best prospect, I believe. But I just don't see what they would be able to get that would actually be of interest.
They have Brendan Brisson.
What's that?
They have Brendan Brisson. That's about it.
That's true, but I don't know if they're gonna let him go. But we'll see. But yeah, I mean, I think it's down to really, those two teams, because I think Washington is, like I said earlier, I think there's some sentimental issue there with Pittsburgh. He doesn't want to, do that, but I think it's a bidding war. And to me, and going back to what Eric was talking about earlier regarding, that he may decide he doesn't want to move. To me, I think, and they're going to honor his wishes. I think it's a little bit of media spin to me, and to help drum up a little bit of a market. And so if it doesn't work out and they're unable to trade or they don't get any sort of offers, then they'll come back and say, what, look, we decided that to honor his wishes. But I don't know. I think there's a little PR spin in there somewhere.
Sean,
If
you
he
got anything
doesn't
else?
get traded, then we won't see Kevin Lankinen again this season. Marc-Andre Fleury will play every game for the rest of the year.
Why not? Yeah, I mean, it's not
I
like you
mean-
got to save him up for anything.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Let's do a quick around the horn. You guys are going to handle the Blackhawks. I'm going to handle the Kraken. Just off the top of your head, your thoughts, and I know we didn't really talk much about Calvin DeHaan, so we can maybe touch on that a little bit too. Just going around the horn, I'm going to start with the Kraken, who I see possibly leaving in trade at the trade deadline. I'm looking down the roster. I'm thinking, let's see, you could see, well, like you said, Marcus Johansson could go. I could see Ryan Donato, even though I like him, he could end up going. Colin Blackwell could be a depth player on somebody's roster. He may or may not go, but he's a cheap player. Giordano goes. And as far as on the defense, I'm going to say, because he has not looked like the coach favors him, Hayden Fleury. I think they might dump Hayden Fleury. He's on the last year of a deal where he's going to be an RFA next year. You might be able to get something for him if you don't plan on using him for the future, and you keep on playing, Lausanne and Borgen and Susie and those guys over Fleury. That's kind of who I see going as far as the Kraken go. Let's see. Start off with Eric. Blackhawks. Who you see leaving? Who's your prediction?
So I would say 110% Ryan Carpenter, Calvin DeHaan, Dominic Kubalik. I think all three of those guys are as good as gone. More than that, I don't know if there's anyone that I would say is 110% gone. If Fleury is willing to go, he's absolutely gone, but we don't know that. After that, I think maybe you could see Dylan Strome if someone really wants to pony up and give a second, maybe even more than that, then he could go. I don't want to give away too much of my piece if you guys haven't read it, but one name that I think is, not someone that has been talked about much at all is Sam Lafferty. He's on an expiring contract. He's been playing decently well of late. He's kind of that guy that, can play a playoff style game. He's a heavy, gritty guy, not afraid to do the dirty work. And even though he, has kind of had some bad fortune, with not scoring much of late, he's been creating a lot of chances. So, maybe if he can start finding, that production, he could be a really solid fourth line pickup for a team, looking for that depth. Maybe he's a 12th or 13th forward for a cup contender, but, there's still value in that. So it seems like the Hawks do like him. So I wouldn't be surprised if they keep him and re-sign him. But if they're willing to let him go, I could definitely see there being a market for a guy like that. Not that he would bring a big return, but that's just kind of an underrated name that not a lot of people have been thinking about recently, because there are all of those, bigger, more well-known names like DeHaan and Kubalik and Fleury, and, that people just assume are going to be traded. Sam Lafferty's kind of like my dark horse that could be traded.
Gotcha. Shawnee.
So I agree with all of Eric's guys. My dark horse, I think they're going to re-sign Sam Lafferty. I think they just like him too much. Colby Cohen probably wants to, get Shamrock Shakes with him today, something like that. My dark horse to be traded is, I have two actually. I think Riley Stillman could be a guy who's moved in a lesser deal, just a defenseman, somebody looking for a depth defenseman.
As long as it's not the Kraken.
And don't be surprised, the Blackhawks need a goalie for the future, because they have Kevin Lankinen's an RFA, Colin Delia is a UFA, Marc-Andre Fleury, regardless if he doesn't get traded or not, I don't want to re-sign him. So I'm going to say Kevin Lankinen could be a name that's out there that could be traded at the deadline too, to hopefully bring back a controlled goaltender that they could platoon with somebody else next year.
Soderblom. You forgot about Soderblom.
He needs to be seasoned more. He gives up too many juicy rebounds right now.
But I think they like him, and I think that's the guy who they're trying to develop. So
for sure, develop him in Rockford.
Yeah, that's fine. Bardo, what do you think, man?
So, Shawnee, I'm going to 100% disagree with you.
Ooh,
Okay.
Fight.
All right.
Colby Cohen is not going to be asking him for Shamrock Shakes. He is a member of the tribe. So today being Purim, is going to go out for some Hummintoshins with him. So get it right, my friend.
Oh, I apologize.
Nailed it.
I
There you
apologize.
Come on. So, I agree with the guys that you had all mentioned in terms of who's likely to go. I mean, I think DeHaan is a goner. I think Carpenter's gone. I think as far as a sleeper goes, I would actually say Henrik Borgstrom. I don't know if that experiment is working here. Maybe another coach will give him a chance, but he's actually had 2 coaches, and I know he's had some injuries too, but I just think that time may be running out for him. And I think he was a Stan Bowman guy that was sort of overpromised of being this great guy and underdelivered on the ice.
He was the greatest college hockey player Stan Bowman ever saw.
Right. So
Just like Ian Mitchell was ready for the NHL 3 years ago.
exactly.
And what
So-
school do they play for? The University of Denver. Both of them.
Exactly.
Take
So
that, Aaron.
I think he's a guy that could be, a change of scenery guy. He plays center. I don't like giving up centers so easily and so quickly, but I'm not seeing anything from him enough. I'm not seeing enough from him, I should say.
Gotcha.
As Coach Q used to say, we need more from him.
I miss Coach Q on the rink.
Q is
Not any of the shenanigans. That was just off the cuff. Someone was mentioning that they can't believe that there wasn't a coaching change in Vegas yet because of the way they've just completely tanked. And the thought that immediately came to my mind, and I don't know if this could even happen, but what if they fired DeBoer and hired Joel Quenneville?
What?
That seems like something they would do.
Does he have to, Vegas, I think, would have to, because I know Quinville has to talk to Gary Bettman in order to get back in the league.
Yeah.
They'd
They'd have to jump through some hoops, but they would do it. They would 100% do it. I mean, they fired Gerard Gallant for nothing.
Yeah,
really.
they didn't even get him a car. They made him take a cab.
Yeah. All right, let's get into questions. We got 2 questions. My boy that I mentioned earlier, Sergeant Pickles, who's spickles13 on Twitter. He asked, and I kind of mentioned some of these players before, but on the Kraken roster, who are some players you think they should target to re-sign? Donato and Blackwell come to mind if the price is right. I'm cool with that. I'm not a huge Colin Blackwell guy, but he's brought a lot to the team, and I really like Ryan Donato. He's one of those guys, and while I'd like to see him stick around, and he's been a really good success story. He's a guy they got for free. He was a free agent. Last minute, they signed him right before the season started, and he's been, really good for them. But if you could flip him for an asset that's going to be more important down the road, then you're going to do that too. So, they're going to resign. They're going to probably resign players like, I think at least like Cole Lind, some of the guys on defense. Like they may let Fleury go or they may trade him. Like I said earlier, I think they're going to resign Jeremy Lauzon, even though I can't stand him. I don't like him. He's an RFA, but they get some guys with some term on the roster too. But Marcus Johansson, I mean, if you wanted to bring him back, sure. I think you could find some more Marcus Johanssons on the market for the price you paid for him this year. Mason Appleton, I mean, he doesn't really tip the scales either way for me. Riley Sheehan's a guy who you could see getting traded that I didn't mention earlier to a team that needs a veteran guy at the bottom of their lineup a little bit. I don't think he's coming back. And then maybe they resign Morgan Geekie. He's a young player who's seemed to have success. It's not like what's her face, Susanna. Who was that?
Suzanne Summers?
No. The Blackhawks. Who she said 6X.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah. Yeah.
Tracy Myers?
No, it was. I know who that is. She works for like the MLS now.
Yeah, but anyway, Morgan Geekie, sure. He the fans seem to like him. They got a little thing going on with the Geekie squad and all that stuff. That's cool. That's fine. He's young. He's going to be cheap. That's fine too.
Susanna Collins.
There you go. I knew it was Susanna something or other. So that's, as far as that goes, sure, there's guys you could bring them back. I don't think there's anyone that's vital you bring them back. There's going to be a lot of players on the market. If you have some cap space, you can really take advantage of that. So I would prefer that they kind of do that instead of having guys hang around. This team's not good. Like, you don't want to have a bunch of players coming back next year on a team that wasn't good this year. So you kind of want to shake some things up. So yeah. So that's that for that question. Now I'm going to turn it over to you guys, and I'm gonna go around the horn on this with you guys. I'm going to start with Bardo, then I'm going to go to Sean, and I'm going to end with Eric on this one. The question is from, the name is Bong Recreation Area. Very funny. If anyone knows that in the Chicago area, it's actually, I believe, in
Wisconsin.
Yeah, it's in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a recreation area called the Bong Recreation Area, and he's on. I don't even know that anyone except for me, being as old as I am, is going to understand the reference of this screen name in Chicago. But Animal Stories 4.
Well, snot-nosed Tommy. Hi, Tommy.
It's a throwback to Larry Lujak and his Animal Stories here in Chicago that probably ended when I was my son's age, 9 years old or something like that. Mm-hmm. But I hope somebody enjoys that reference because I enjoy the reference. So Animal Stories, I understand where you're coming from. But anyway, the question is, do they make their trades today? Meaning today, I would say we could include Friday too. We were talking about this a little earlier. I'm going to add Friday on there too because they're going to be going on an 8-day road trip that starts on Saturday. Feels like it could be a St. Patrick's Day massacre for the Blackhawks. I'm going to say today, tomorrow. I'm going to amend the question a little bit. So first off.
So I think the thing to watch, it's almost like 'tis the season of guys getting benched as a management decision. I think that will be the interesting thing. There may be players that are actually left home as insurance policies as like, hey, we're going to try to trade you. And if we don't, then you know what? You'll meet us wherever we are. They invented planes for a reason. We can go and you can go find us wherever we are on the road. Yeah. So to me, I think you're going to start to see guys like DeHaan and maybe even Fleury and maybe some others, sit out the next, over the weekend. And that's why there's a good chance that Vlasic might end up playing because there may be specific guys that are sitting out. And I would say that it's probably only about 3 guys that are going to sit. I would say it's Carpenter. I would say it's DeHaan and maybe Fleury, but I don't know. And maybe Fleury doesn't play because it's just, maybe he goes and he's just the backup, but I don't know.
Yeah.
That'll be interesting to watch though. If Fleury is, that going back to the honor of the wishes thing or whatever it is that Stan Bowman promised him, if Fleury's not with them in the beginning of that road trip, that's interesting.
Yeah, for sure. Shawnee.
Yeah, so we didn't mention this earlier. The Seattle Kraken withheld Mark Giordano from his 1,000th game, giving him the silver stick, I believe, and he didn't play in the game. So
he did dress for warm-ups, but he didn't play in the game yet. That's right.
Correct. Yeah. So I would see like if the big name guys like Marc-Andre Fleury doesn't travel or something like that, but that's the only player I could really see them. DeHaan, especially DeHaan because of his injury history. Marc-Andre Fleury, and that's about it. The rest of the guys, like, get them on the plane. If you land in your first destination and you're traded, you get them in a cab off the tarmac and you get them going. Like, I don't think, if professional sports has taught us anything, the Gerald Gallant story should show us that they don't care. They don't care. You're just an asset, a piece of meat. So no, they're not going to trade you before the road trip. They don't care.
Eric.
Yeah, I think I would agree with a lot of the things that you guys just said. I would say if they are going to leave a few guys behind, I do not think Fleury is going to be one of those guys because if you don't have a deal done for him but you leave him behind, that's tipping your hand, that he wants to be traded. So then that's kind of dropping his value ever so slightly potentially. So, if it was me, I would say, hey, yep, you're coming along, but you're the backup. and you are not playing unless Kevin Lankinen gets hurt. So, yeah, if they do decide to leave any guys behind, I think it would be guys like Carpenter, DeHaan, potentially Kubalik if he's not dealt before they leave. I mean, he could be traded tonight, tomorrow morning, whatever it might be. Same with DeHaan. I feel like Carpenter's probably going to be one of those guys that is a Monday afternoon type of guy. So, I could see him potentially even playing on Saturday. We'll see. But, I don't know. I think if they were in a huge hurry to have been moving guys, I think they probably already would have jumped on some things. I mean, I'm sure they've gotten at least some somewhat decent offers for some of those guys, that they're at least considering. So, I don't know. I don't think the timing of, make sure you get it done before they leave is all that important. Like you guys were saying, I think it's more just you move the asset when it's the right time and nothing else really matters. So yeah, that's my take on it.
Yeah. And I can't see Kyle Davidson jumping early on a deal without completely sussing it out. He wants to come in and make a good impression that, he's going to take this team in the right direction and he was the right decision. So I can't see him just coming in and like taking a couple bad deals right away just because it's too fast or they have to travel, Saturday. I don't think it's going to be that. It'll be set up ahead of time. It will be planned ahead of time. Like, hey, we're working on this deal for you. You're probably going to, if you're traded, before or after this game, you're going to leave this airport. If you're traded before or after this game, you're going to leave this airport. Just be ready. Bring the extra bag or whatever. Like they're going to suss this out. Like they're not going to, I don't think they're blindsiding many people.
Right.
I think everybody knows that they could be traded, and I think they're going to all be talked to, or at least I hope they will.
Tell your wife to get the stuff ready, to pack it up, take your extra bag. It's actually probably better for them if they are already traveling, just because they already have their travel stuff with them, so they can go travel to their new city, and then their significant other or whoever else can get their living situation situated.
Yeah.
One other thing too, I just thought of. Do not be surprised whatsoever if you see guys called up from Rockford tomorrow morning.
Oh yeah, good call.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, for sure. You're
Good
probably
call.
going to see a lot of that from all teams, in one way or the other. So
yeah. But specifically for the Hawks, they're leaving for the trip tomorrow. So if they are presumably going to be moving a few guys mid-trip, you're probably going to want to bring at least an extra guy or two.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think we hit everything. Anyone else got any last points that you want to make that we forgot or you want to talk about?
I just want to talk about, we've talked about this on previous Chicago Rinkcast episodes, but, and I don't think we really talked on it much. I mean, we mentioned his name earlier, but, I think it is worth having the discussion again about Brandon Hagel. I'll start by saying,
let's do it.
I do not think that they will trade him. I do not expect for him to be traded. But given the report, whatever it was a month ago, that someone had made an offer of a first and a decent prospect for him, at that point, I'm sure the price is even higher now. And they obviously said no to that. So, I guess if Kyle Davidson is taking the right approach to this and saying, I have to maximize every asset that I have, whatever that looks like, I would just have a hard time envisioning Hagel sticking around just from that standpoint. Again, I don't think he'll be traded, but I would at least be curious to hear your guys' thoughts, especially you, Jeff, since you're not on the Chicago Rinkcast. Understanding that the Hawks really like him, that they do not seem inclined to move him, what would kind of be that tipping point of a return where Kyle Davidson would say, I don't want to move him, but I have to?
I don't even know that there's a first round pick. What we heard before, like that, you should take that. You should honestly take that. He should have taken that. If he and the one thing that a lot of people seem to forget is like just because they hear this is what the possible return on a deal is, doesn't mean that's what the actual return was. They could have heard that secondhand, and that doesn't mean that it was written on a tablet, by God himself that this is what's going to happen. This, if you get a first round draft pick plus something, you need to take that for just about anyone on that roster, to be honest with you. But Brandon Hagel, sure, everyone, we love Brandon Hagel. We like what he is. I'd like him on the Kraken. Every team would probably like a Brandon Hagel. That's all good and well. I like Brandon Tanev. That's all good and well. But if you offer me a first round draft pick plus more for a Brandon Tanev, which could possibly be in the same ballpark. I mean, I know Hagel's got 20 goals and Tanev didn't, but Tanev was having a really good season himself. If you offer me a first round draft pick in this draft and something else, a young player, something like that, Brandon Tanev's out of town. And the same should have been with Hagel. I just think you got to sell high, and right now he's high. Just like we said with Eric Gustafson when they should have traded him when he was at his highest, and everyone's like, no, you can't get rid of him. Can't get rid of him. The next year they couldn't give him away. Now I'm not saying that also that can't happen to Brandon Hagel, but could it?
It's like Kubalik.
Exactly like Kubalik. They want to strike while the iron's hot.
Yeah,
Eric, I think if you get a first and a second and a prospect, you move them in a heartbeat. If somebody offers you more than that, like he's gone, like get him on the plane. Like Gates said earlier, you didn't pay anything for him. And so I just looked at Brandon Hagel's numbers. Like he had 9 goals and 15 assists in 52 games this year. He has 21 goals, 16 assists in 55 games this year. Is this the norm, or is this the aberration year? And if it's the aberration year and you don't trade him, then you're stuck with a Dominique Kubalik situation all over again. So if you get a first round and a second round pick, you would have 2 second round picks, another first rounder, you have 3 third round picks already. Like that sets you up pretty good to hopefully restock your farm system and hopefully start developing guys for the future. I think you got to do that. You got to make that trade.
I would say
if
if you get a first
round pick.
I was going to say if you get a first and a second for him, I'm dumping him. He's gone. Go ahead, Bartle.
Yeah.
No, I was just going to say if you get a first for him, you take it. If you get a first and a prospect or a first and a second, I will fly out to Chicago and pack his damn bags and walk him to wherever his new team is. I mean, there's no question trade because, quite frankly, I think it's going to be his peak. And when you look at the team, it's going to get worse before it gets better. Kane's not going to be on this team or at his peak much longer. Taves may retire after this year. So who is he going to be playing with that's going to help him get 21 goals? Or at this rate, he might hit 25 or 30. So this might be his peak year. Because after that, the talent is just going to go downhill for a while. And then, he's going to be back to, being Fernando Pisani. So.
Ooh.
A good, nice dig there, Bardo. We got a lot of peace tonight.
Out.
Bardo out. Eric, you got anything you want to wrap up on that? I think we gave you what you were looking for.
Yeah, I think that those were good thoughts. I mean, yeah, and I said it in my piece, but as we've been saying, it's about asset maximization. And another thing to keep in mind, and I think, Sean, you've said this on previous Rinkcasts, and maybe Bard too, and probably Andy too. I think we've all said it. Hagel is the type of player where with his playing style, you just can't sustain that for as long as if you're Alex DeBrincat or Patrick Kane or someone like that. There's a shelf life on players like that. And I understand the Hawks love him. Everybody loves him. He's a very solid, valuable player. By the time the Hawks are back to being a legitimate contending team, I would venture a guess that Hagel is not as good as he even is today. Whether this is his peak or whether he does go up and maybe, he does become a regular 25 goal scorer for the next 5 years. What good is that doing you in the next 5 years? It's not really doing anything. So if you can take a guy like that, who again, let's establish on a Stanley Cup contending team is a third liner at best. Yeah, he can slot up and down the lineup. That's fine. But he's a third liner. That's what he is. That's fine. If you're glued to a third liner during a rebuild, that's a big problem, especially if you're passing up serious assets in return for a player like that during a rebuild. So, you look at, a couple years ago, what Tampa gave up to get Blake Coleman. That's a similar type of a return that they could probably get for someone like Brandon Hagel, especially factoring in his age and his cap hit and the fact he's signed for 2 more years. That's hugely valuable. So, in my opinion, I don't think he will ever have more value than he does from right now, Thursday at 7:32 Central Time, until Monday at 2 o'clock Central Time. That is the highest his value will likely ever be. And I love him as much as everybody else does. If you don't capitalize on that, that is a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. And the thing about that too is why he's so valuable now is he's, 20, 25 goal scorer, and he only makes 1.5 million for the next 2 years.
Yep.
Like, that is huge to teams that are in a cap crunch that really count every single penny and are having to use LTIR. A guy they could play on your third line or up and down the lineup that's 1.5 million that could he's probably not going to score 20 goals on your team, but he might score 15 at $1.5 million for the next 2 years. There you go, man. Right there. And he's going to get more expensive down the road. So he might score 20 goals every year, but after 2 years, he's going to be making like $3 million or $4 million. Then is he as valuable then? And he's 3 years older. Like, it makes all the sense in the world right now. And back to what you were saying about playing types. Look at Andrew Shaw. He's not quite Andrew Shaw, but he plays a more physical style like an Andrew Shaw, hard into the corners, plays hard. Like Andrew Shaw, was retired at what, 27? Was it? Yeah.
Yeah.
He because he couldn't stay on the ice because he was, concussions and injuries and stuff. So yeah, all great points.
Yeah, no, my biggest concern is just, the fact that he has become really a fan favorite, and we know how marketing driven this organization has become. So, I mean, knowing that he is cost control, he's had some success offensively, physically, he's always around the puck. They may say, you know what, he's a guy that we can keep and, expect him to continue to develop, et cetera. But I hope I'm wrong, because I think that, there's got to be some sort of assets that they can get for him, and we'll see.
Yeah, we will. Anybody got anything else, or are we going to wrap this up?
Let's wrap it.
All right, cool.
Put a bow on it.
Put a big bow on it. This extravaganza. All right. Thanks everyone for tuning in and listening. I'm going to try and get a little bit better on doing some Kraken Ringcasts. I recently moved. I apologize to everyone. I haven't been able to keep up as much as I'd like to, but I recently moved twice in the past 6 months. Finally getting situated where I'm at, so hopefully I can have some people on. I plan on having a friend of mine on, Washed Up Goalie. I was on his podcast. I'm going to have him on to talk, maybe some Kraken goalie stuff and things like that. So just be patient with me. I'm going to try and keep this thing rolling. But I wanted to kind of make this, the guys here kind of brought up the idea of having like a combined podcast where we talk about both. And I thought it was a great idea. So, but you can find all of our comprehensive content on the Kraken and the Blackhawks on www.the-rink.com. Andy kind of gets it screwed up sometimes. I love you, Andy, but you got to remember the dash, because I don't even know where it ends up going if you just go to the-rink.com. So, but I know it's not available. So, all of our social media accounts, I'm at Puck and Hostel. Sean is DIESAL3426. Bardo is ASB1216. Eric is, you can see it right there, WA Laxer 19. And I remember those all off the top of my head, guys. You guys should be very proud of me.
Boom!
Because I have to put them all in your articles when your articles are shared. So I've been putting them in all year long. I have all you guys memorized. So there's that. At the Rink Official, at the Rink Shy, at the Rink Seattle. Kraken Hostel is for the Kraken Hostel side of the podcast. At the Rinkcast is for the Chicago side of the Rinkcast. Like I said before, I'm at Puck and Hostel. I don't want to forget one last time. I know Andy does a really good job of this. www.puckhockey.com, puckhcky.com. You go there, you can get the rink wear. They got lots of cool metal themed jerseys and things like that. You've heard it a million times, but they got great stuff. I own a ton of stuff, and I bought it. I wasn't given it, so I was a big fan of them. Jacob was a big fan of them before we even partnered up with them. So head over there, use the discount code THERINK, THERINK, and you'll get 10% off your order. And anything over $100, you get like a free t-shirt, Puck Hockey t-shirt. I got one with their Puck Hockey logo that's right there at the bottom, right underneath Sean. It's got that on it. It's a cool looking shirt, man. It grabs people's eyes, man. They don't just give you cruddy stuff. They give you really good, good stuff. Their logo is really cool, and it makes people ask questions. People want to know. So yeah, puckhockey.com, puckhcky.com. If you get a chance, head over to iTunes, rate and review us. Let's see. Eric's draft piece. Make sure you check it out. I will be continuing to share it on the internets, on the interwebs. We will have a ticker up with all the trades. It will explain that. It will explain exactly what they are in simple terms, and then there will be an analysis, a more detailed analysis that's done by our friends at Puckpedia, where they actually break down the salaries and all that stuff. It's great stuff. I usually embed it in our articles, but I'm going to have links to that too. So get ready for that. That's going to be coming up. I'll probably put it up maybe Sunday, where I'm already compiling it, the ticker. So you'll see all the Kraken and Blackhawks moves will be there in one nice list that you can take a look at. One last time, Eric, you got anything else you want to plug?
I don't think so. Just check out my preview piece, like you said. Yeah, just looking forward to hopefully a very busy weekend for both the Blackhawks and the Kraken. Let's bring home a number of draft picks and potentially some
we'll all be happy
as
yeah.
well.
We would all be happy with that.
We will all be happy. So, yeah, let's bring in those picks.
And don't be humble, Eric. The Center Ice Cardcast, right?
Mm-hmm.
That you
That's
could.
right.
He has his own hockey card podcast that's doing very well. That you guys had a write up in a magazine about you guys. So if you guys are interested in hockey cards, go listen to that. You could listen to Eric and listen to us. There's nothing that says you can't. Eric's doing a great job over there. So why don't you make sure you get your plugs in, man? You deserve it.
Yeah, he's got like 35 Dylan Strome cards ready to sell.
Only 2.
And I've even gotten some cards from Eric. So I've got some cards sitting right here from Eric. Sean, you got anything else you want to plug?
No, I will be working on something about the success of draft picks and like what percentage of picks make it in the NHL. It'll probably come out after the trade deadline, just so we and kind of assess what those picks' value are and stuff like that. So that's something that look forward to in the future.
Cool. Bardo, you got anything else you want to? Or are you good?
Other than Devontae Adams just got traded to the Raiders, I got nothing.
And Chris Kreider scored his 40th goal.
Oh, is it 1-1 now?
I think so. I don't know. I just saw Kreider pop up. It said Kreider 40, so that popped up. But no trades have happened during this, which I'm very upset about because I was hoping we were going to break a trade here on the air. But
breaking news.
We don't have that kind of luck. So, all right. Well, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedules to download, listen, and support us. This is Gatekeeper sitting in the big chair for Andy Campbell, for Eric Andrews, the Bardo, and Sean Goldstein at the bottom there with the nice looking hat on. Until next episode, see you on the rink.